Hey y'all, my name is Jeff Nowak, NOLA.com digital sports producer here with your Saints Monday live chat. I've got with me NOLA.com beat writer, Saints beat writer Luke Johnson. How you doing, Luke?
Howdy, Jeff. I'm doing great. As you can see, I am the best uncle ever, and I'm enjoying that fact.
That's
To
good to
make
hear.
the playoff push.
That's not a title they hand out lightly. Um, so we're here with the Saints live chat. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Hancock Whitney Bank, for helping us bring this to y'all. And so obviously we're going to talk about some takeaways from Saints Panthers yesterday, a few other things that have kind of cropped up since game time, since kickoff, and kind of look forward to the Bears matchup on Sunday at the Superdome in the wild card round. But so first, Luke, I was curious. So, what are your biggest takeaways from the Saints' 33-7 victory over the Panthers in Week 17 that helped them finish the season 12-4?
Well, it's hard not to start with what happened with Ty Montgomery, and that was really insane, right? The guy finds out Friday that they're gonna probably play him a little bit at running back, and then he comes in Saturday. They're like, "Actually, you're the running back because we don't have anybody else." And he had one carry this entire season. It came in Week 1. It went for -4 yards. No reason for anybody to really expect him to have the type of game he had. But the Saints have done this thing all season long where it doesn't really matter who it is or what position they play or anything else. If they get asked to come in and step up and play the role, they've done it. And it's happened over and over and over again. Ty Montgomery goes off for 105 yards like it's no big deal yesterday. Had a couple of really nice explosive runs. I thought he was just like downhill, seeing the holes, attacking the holes. It's just, you wonder how the heck the guy does it, having not played the position all season. So that was the main one for me. I just was really impressed by that. And I think that is not just Ty Montgomery. That's the coaching staff and the guys just around him on the field with him, just being very adaptable and versatile. And I also want to touch on the Saints defense. I don't think that effort should be overlooked, despite the fact that they did it for much of the third and fourth quarter against a backup quarterback. They didn't have, they weren't facing Christian McCaffrey or Mike Davis, the two running backs. But just right from the very start of that game, that defensive line especially really set the tone. First play of the game is a Cam Jordan pass breakup. The second play of the game, there's three guys in the backfield dropping somebody for a loss. And the third play of the game is a Trey Hendrickson sack. It's like bang, 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 punt. And I think they've been doing that all season. I've written it down in my notebook probably 15 times watching these games over and over and over again. It's just like Saints set the tone in the first play of the game. And, it's just really impressive to see them just kind of continue to do that just by owning the line of scrimmage. And this weekend was just another example of that.
Yeah, and the Trey Hendrickson sack was such a good example of, it's like, oh, welcome back. He just showed up in the middle of the line, and the back that came out to block him just seemed to have like temporary blindness. He just skirted right by him. But yeah, Ty Montgomery was interesting because he came in obviously wearing 88 all season. Seeing him line up in the backfield wearing 88 is fun. It's been a number he's worn his whole career. And after the game, he was describing kind of the situation where he started the week, in the wide receiver room, kind of getting ready to play wide receiver. And then he came and they were like, no, you're running back now. He's like, yeah, okay. That's what I'm here for. And it didn't start that well for him. He had one play, like before that long run, he had a 37-yard run. He kind of blew a tire in the backfield and went down for a loss. And you kind of had that kind of flash through your head of like, oh, maybe this isn't going to work out that well. And then, he kind of broke around the edge. But, it's not only Ty Montgomery. He's just kind of the latest example, as you kind of touched on. Marquez Callaway all year long. It seems like he steps up in those moments when there's not a lot of options, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, let's see what Marquez Callaway has, and he just seems to deliver time after time after time. What have you seen from him, especially in the, I want to say the matchup against the Chargers was a big one for him. And obviously this week, no Michael Thomas, no Deontay Harris. What have you seen from him as you go into the playoffs and you kind of have to rely on guys in much more pressure roles? What have you seen from him so far?
He's a stud, man. And one of the most impressive things about him is just how savvy he is at this stage of his career. I think what my expectations were for Marquez Callaway coming into the year knowing very little about him outside of the fact that he was, a return guy mainly at Tennessee. I was just like, okay, well, this guy's probably like a really good athlete who just hasn't put it together on the football field. And while like I do think he obviously is a great athlete, he's a lot more than that. And the play I come back to from this last game is it was the deep ball Drew Brees hit him on the right sideline, where he just completely fooled Dante Jackson. And it doesn't matter how fast you are. Dante Jackson's one of the fastest guys in the league. It doesn't matter how fast you are if that's the kind of route you're going to run. And he just he gave him the inside stem. Dante Jackson bit, stumbled, and then he's like off to the races. And he beats him for like a 30-yard gain or something like that. It's really impressive. And he's done that kind of stuff all year. He's been good on those kind of routes. He's been good on the intermediate routes. Drew Brees is really comfortable throwing those like 8-9 yard out routes to him. And it's for a guy who's an undrafted free agent who didn't have a rookie mini camp or anything like that, who missed some time in training camp, if you guys remember that, missed some time this year, to continue to just, when you get your opportunity on the field, to just step in and make big plays. I really think they found something special in that guy.
Yeah, and I mean, for a guy who I think, let me start over. That Dante Jackson play, I'm glad you brought it up, because that's one of the better plays from the game if you want to just look at, the impact he has. And when you go back, you saw a lot of folks on Twitter giving Dante Jackson some grief, former LSU guy, so he gets the DBU treatment anytime he gets beat on a play. But he actually didn't play that badly after he got beat off the line. He actually played it well. That play probably 7-8 times out of 10 ends in pass interference, and he actually made a play on the ball without fouling. Marquez Callaway just beat him. He got his hands up late, which is a good thing when you're a wide receiver, because when you get a guy in trail, you don't want to show him where the ball is by putting your hands up early, which a lot of young players will do, and I think that's a good example of him kind of playing beyond his years.
Yeah.
But the other thing, when you're talking about Saints receivers, it's become pretty clear over the past few years, to get on the roster, you have to block. You have guys like Traquan Smith, Michael Thomas.
Callaway's been doing that. He's been doing that all year. That was like kind of his main role for most of the year until he had that breakout game. Like you said, I think it was against the Chargers. They brought him in there and they're like, hey, you're smart and you understand this stuff and you get the willingness, a lot like Traquan Smith, and he crushed it. And then now that he's a very effective and utilized receiver on this team, they still ask him to do it, and he still does it really well. And I think it's also you see that sort of thing, and then you also see the way, like when Emmanuel Sanders makes a big catch over there, the first guy there is Marquez Callaway making the money sign, and the first guy there in the end zone when Sanders catches the ball is Marquez Callaway. You can see when guys like gravitate toward a guy, and I think that's. Like I really do think that there's legitimately something special there, and it's not reflected in the stats per se. I think he finished the year with maybe 250 receiving yards total, but it's so much more than that, and it's just evident every time you watch him play.
Yeah, and he missed several games. He missed 3 games on injured reserve, at least 3 games, and he didn't have an impact the first few games of the season. So when you talk about 252 yards or whatever it is, it's a bit more significant than it sounds based on the total. And especially when you consider a lot of those catches were the Michael Thomas brand catches that, won't jump off the page, but they move the chains. And it's also pretty clear that he's just got the trust of Drew Brees. Is that, and that's not easy to get. When you're talking about a future Hall of Famer, you see it all the time with Tom Brady. If he doesn't trust you, he's not throwing you the ball. And careers have ended because Tom Brady got mad at them. And I think that's what you've seen with Marquez Callaway. We're kind of just on Marquez Callaway love fest now, and that was unintentional, but it's just very easy to get sucked in there. The other guys on the team that kind of got thrust into these roles because of, as I don't think we mentioned, the coronavirus issues. Obviously, Alvin Kamara tested positive. Several players, including all the running backs, were out. That's why you got to Ty Montgomery and Tony Jones, who played solid in his rookie debut. But on the defensive side, you had guys like Grant Haley, Alex Anzalone's starting with Quan Alexander out for the season. What did you see from the secondary? Marcus Williams was out. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was out. What did you see from those guys?
I thought they played pretty well. Yeah, they had a few issues. Grant Haley, I think, was kind of up and down, but that's a really tough assignment for somebody who's playing their first game of the year to come in and be like, hey, guard Curtis Samuel, who's like one of the better all-purpose sort of players in the NFL. I thought, Malcolm Jenkins made the really nice pick in the end zone, but he also had one that probably should have been a pick that Curtis Samuel beat him on a kind of jump ball. PJ Williams had probably an opportunity on an underthrown ball that ended up being a 44-yard completion to DJ Moore. And, some of those plays I don't think happen if they've got the full component of players.
You mean the Panthers?
The same token, the Saints.
Yeah. Okay.
If the Saints have Marcus Williams, I think that underthrown ball to DJ Moore is probably a pick. If the Saints have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I don't know if Curtis Samuel has 120 receiving yards, whatever he had. So I think it was kind of, it was hit or miss. Like there were some nitpicky moments if you want to be that kind of guy. But then, they picked off 5 passes. Like how much of a nitpicker can you be? So
first time they've done that since the 1991 season. In a game where they had no starting secondary players other than no starting safeties other than Malcolm Jenkins that they've run out there. They intercepted the most passes they had. There's a lot
of like first time since like way long ago this year with this defense. They finished number 4 in the final defensive rankings, like total defense, which is a shame because if they would have just like kept it a little bit less than the Steelers, who I think finished like had a pretty good game in Week 17 defensively to leapfrog them. It would have been their first year in the top 3 of the NFL in total defense since Jim Mora was there in 1992. Wow. They went the entire year without allowing a single 300-yard passer, which is insane in 2020. You're not supposed to go like 5 weeks without allowing a 300-yard passer, and they went the entire year. First time they've done that in a long time. And if you just look by like team totals, they did it in 2005, but like technically, like Dante Culpepper had a 300-yard game that they took the numbers off for the sacks. But it's just this is another thing that we were talking about with the running backs or the offensive line or quarterback or whoever. It's like it hasn't mattered one time this year.
You haven't really allowed that many rushing yards either. So when you're not the only game, obviously the Eagles game, that was the big storyline. They had 200-yard rushers, which ended that ridiculous streak of like 50-something games holding an opponent, not allowing an opposing rusher over 100 yards. But when you're not allowing a lot of passing yards, and you're not allowing a lot of rushing yards, and you also had a stretch where you didn't allow a touchdown for 12 quarters, you're probably a pretty good defense.
After 5 picks, they probably finished in like the top 5 in the NFL in interceptions too. They were just like people just keep kind of coming to me and saying like the Saints defense is legit, and I just feel like that's got to be like scar tissue from the last like 20 years of watching Saints football be really bad at defense. This Saints defense is absolutely legit. Now having said that, they could just go out and lay a complete egg against a Bears team that they should shut down. But, we love setting ourselves up for success.
And then heartbreak.
Yeah.
My favorite stat before we move on, Ken Crawley, 1 snap, 1 interception. Not a bad day at the office.
Way to go, Ken.
Okay, so as you kind of broached that subject there, the last thing we'll get into, Saints face the Bears on Sunday. They needed that Sunday start time to have a chance to get Alvin Kamara back from his coronavirus, what do you want to call it, hiatus, walkabout, I don't know. But if they played on Saturday, they would not have an option to get him back. With the Sunday start, there is a very thin margin, but he could theoretically play. And that's kind of a subplot to the larger narrative of Saints rematch the Bears. The last time they played this season, C.J. Gardner-Johnson got chain snatched and then punched by Javon Wims. It was another weird game, one of the many weird games Saints have played this year. What are your kind of like opening thoughts of that matchup and how the Saints go into it? They're going to face a different quarterback in Mitch Trubisky than they did in that other matchup. They had Jared Goff that time.
Yeah, I honestly, Nick Foles, Jared Goff.
Oh yes.
Uh,
So
yeah,
they're the same person in my head.
we can almost just outside of the drama from C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Javon Wims, which positive will resurface this week. That ought to be fun. I mean, it already kind of did. C.J. brought it up on Twitter himself. Outside of that, like there's not much from that game that I feel like we can take away and apply to this one. Quarterback is completely different. The Bears are playing a completely different level of offensive football. They were actually pretty good down the stretch. Didn't really show up in Green Bay week 17, but I think if you're sleeping on that offense because Mitchell Trubisky has been what he is throughout his career, it's probably a mistake. He's been playing pretty good football over these last couple of weeks. The Bears didn't have Akeem Hicks in that game, and the Saints have often struggled against. I'm sorry, the Bears did have Akeem Hicks. I was thinking about the year before. Either way, Akeem Hicks is a complete game on the inside, and that's an area that has killed the Saints in the past.
It's a matchup on opposite sides of two great Canadian football stars, Onyemata and Akeem Hicks out of Regina University, I think. Saints draft pick, I believe.
Yes. But either way, the Saints were also missing a bunch of guys in that game. The point remains that this is a completely different matchup than the one they played earlier in the year on so many different levels. The Saints are playing better. The Bears are playing better. The quarterbacks, the players, everybody's different. So
if I remember correctly, I think Allen Robinson, he played in that game, but I want to say he was hurt and there was a question mark going into the game.
Yeah, he was doubtful. He was doubtful and then upgraded to probable or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, at best he was operating in a limited capacity, and that shouldn't be the case this week. So you're probably going to see a more representative performance from Allen Robinson than you did in that game. And Allen Robinson is a legit star wide receiver in the NFL. He's one of those guys that kind of gets overlooked when you talk about the top tier guys, but he's in it. If you look at his numbers, you look what he's done.
Yeah, like Blake Bortles and Mitch Trubisky throwing you the ball for your entire career.
Right.
Yeah, no, but I think, having said that, let's actually get into this Kamara thing real quick. I don't want to lose sight of that. He can, as long as he doesn't, continue to show symptoms, test positive again, he will be able to play Sunday. The problem is,
he'll be eligible to play. Let's phrase it that way, because I think that's the
able and eligible are different things. The issue is the Saints would have to approach this knowing that if they decide to let Alvin Kamara play, he would not have had a single snap of practice in a week and a half. He would not have been around his teammates. You'd not have heard anything with his ears and on the practice field. Everything would be completely digital, and they would just have to trust him to go out there, having not been actually doing the actual process of the game plan. So I think if that's any one of 60 other players in the Saints roster, you probably say, well, it's a good try, but we'll just hope you're ready next week, and we'll hope there is a next week. I think my gut tells me that Alvin is one of probably 3 players in this team who you could be okay, we trust that you are mentally, physically ready to go out there and perform this week. You haven't practiced, but we're going to drop you in. So I don't think we're going to hear from Sean Payton anytime soon, whether that's going to happen, but I would anticipate it if he's physically ready to go, that he'd probably be out there.
Yeah, and I mean, whether the Saints decide midweek that he's not going to be a big part of the game plan, they're going to pretend he is one way or the other because they want the Bears to have to prepare for that. That's a Sean Payton staple. It's what any coach would do in that circumstance. But I know Sean talked today about how they're going to communicate in terms of making sure he has game plan info and kind of film sessions throughout the week, stuff like that. What did he say today to that extent?
It's just that he would be prepared mentally as best they could over the digital however anybody's had to do anything this year.
Right.
He'd be in on Zoom calls and all that stuff. But I mean, that's it. Like he is locked down and he cannot step foot inside that facility at all.
He's basically going to be a reporter.
He's a reporter with a lot better access.
Yeah, with a lot more information that we would love to have. Yeah.
And let's just get this out of the way. Like seeing how good Alvin Kamara is at like basically everything else. I hope he doesn't like come for my job too, because I'll probably be obsolete sometimes. No, I just think that like they're going to have to try to do their best to get him ready for a playoff football game by Zoom. And I just don't think that there's very many players who you can really legitimately count on to understand everything you're trying to do if they're not there. But I think Alvin Kamara is one of them.
Yeah, and I think, we can end this. I think the transition from 6 touchdowns on Christmas to this is such a great example of the 2020 football season.
This year in a microcosm, yes.
But we'll cut it off there. Thanks for anyone who watched. Thanks for anyone who was in the comment stream. Didn't get to any of those, but we'll try to in future live chats. We're going to be doing a few more of these throughout the week. Again, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Hancock Whitney Bank. I blanked for a second there. Hancock Whitney Bank for helping us bring this to you. Again, I'm Jeff Nowak from Thank you. I'm Jeff Nowak from NOLA.com, digital sports producer. Along with me was Luke Johnson, Saints beat writer. Make sure to check out all of Luke's work over on NOLA.com /sports/Saints. I've been working on saying that without a lisp. I have not successfully gotten there. You can follow him on Twitter @bylukejohnson. And let us know what you think. Let us know if you want to see any or get any content from these that we didn't catch on today, anything like that. And we'll see you later in the week. Peace, y'all.
Bye.